We're taking stock with the Chief Executive of the Post Office, Mark Barnes, and for the first time in the history of Taking Stock, we have a live studio audience as well. Post Office workers who are very keen to hear what the boss has to say and, frankly, getting the information before you do, because we've recorded this at the International Mail Centre at OR Tambo International Airport. I mentioned earlier, 60,000 mail items come in here every single day and have to be processed manually in order to get it out to the regions. Not everybody's happy with the performance of the Post Office. Many of you have given up on the Post Office. Mark Barnes is making a very compelling case for you to try the Post Office once again. Just don't send anything too important the first time, perhaps. But the future direction of the Post Office, what is it? What kind of a business is the Post Office? I mean, you probably need a rebrand anyway, because if you call yourself a post office, people expect you to deliver post, and you don't do as much of that now as you want to do other stuff into the future.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever be rebranded, because there's an element of trust around Post Office. You know, Post Office is just around the corner. Post Office is government, and if we get it right, government is there to look after you, not to take commercial value out of you, like we're happening in social grants. So there's a trust element, and so we'll be the Post Office. But post offices around the world have changed. Okay, and there's no doubt that we have to get into financial services, logistics, and e-commerce. Okay, and on all of those fronts, we're making huge strides. So the movement in the bank started off as a depositating bank. We've still got 6.2 million people who deposit money. We've got about 5.5 billion of people's cash. That's all sitting on deposit with the major banks. We've got about 9 billion of cash and near cash on deposit with Maybank. And now what do we do with that asset? What do we do with that trusted asset? Okay. And the next thing we did is move into transactions. We are now paying 7.8 million of the 11 million beneficiaries in social grants, okay, which is by far the majority of
This was, controversially, of course, with the Social Security Agency decided to outsource this function to a private company, a listed company on the JSE. They made hundreds of millions of rands worth of profit every year as a result of delivering social grants.
So we'll give you statistics. Netone brought out their results a couple of weeks ago. And they said that as a result of losing the SASSA contract, they've lost $76 million a year. That's over R1 billion, which has come back into the state. Okay, and so one of our drivers is, are we creating state capacity to replace state dependency? That's what we see as our function. Okay, so now we move then in a bank that takes deposits to a bank that does transactions, so which is a risk-free business. It's a systems-driven business, and I always said to the critics, money doesn't go around on the back of a truck, it goes around in a computer. Yeah. And so don't compare parcels to cash. And we are succeeding in that. I mean, it's a difficult business. It introduces the concept of fraud and all of those kinds of dangers and expenses that go along with those dangers. But we see a world in 18 months, 2 years, where there'll be a cashless social grant delivery, where you'll be able to take your cell phone and collect your social grant and then take it to a spaza shop or take it to a Stokvel and put the money in. All of that stuff is coming. But we are a valid infrastructure which protects the beneficiaries from Section 26A deductions, from any. But having said that, we probably the repository of the biggest data in South Africa. We've got 18 million beneficiaries. We've got 11.2 million addresses. We've got 6.2 million depositors at the bank. We've got 3 million people using MVRs. And so I can go on. We must have the biggest database in South Africa. So
what is the value of that if you don't use it?
It's huge. Well, we haven't been able to afford to use it. Okay, we are linked up to the Department of Home Affairs. We've got biometric verification. If you start talking about a future world, you start talking about a supercomputer at the center of a post office where every single teller is a channel to market. Okay, and you start talking about, the courier world. They took our courier business away from us essentially because we couldn't compete. Okay, but I can imagine a world where all the courier companies are going to come here to our Tambo, and we're going to do a revenue share agreement with them. Why would we replicate them until they want to deliver something in Mthatha? Yes. Then they're going to have to use us. Okay, because we're the only people that go there. People talk about this as an old-fashioned physical asset. All the banks are closing their branches. Yep. Let them do so. Who will be left standing? Us. Who will be the physical infrastructure? You can order your bicycle over the internet, Bruce, but you cannot ride it till it gets to your house.
But how do you get the faith of the South African public that you are capable of doing it? Because that's the brand issue.
By demonstrating. We used to be in the news every week of complaints. When I used to write an article in the Business Day, they always said, stop writing articles and get back to the post office.
Happens. That still happens from time to time. I saw one the other day.
Well, you mustn't read all the newspapers. You mustn't read everything you read. And so, how do we get that faith back? By just delivery. Yeah. By looking at the people around. Look at the people around you, man. Look at them. These are extraordinary human beings who've had to tolerate difficult times in the hope that one day we'll be given the right to become a real business. That's a promise I have to deliver on here.
How do you do it without government support? Can you do it without government support?
Well,
Can your cash flows create an environment in which you can turn this into a tech hub and you can become a fourth industrial revolution player in the world of not telecommunication, but in the world of communications and deliveries and systems?
No, I don't think we can do it without capital. But whether we need government capital or not is another debate. Our next stage is...
Would you be allowed to get Deutsche Post to come in or the Royal Mail to come in?
I hope
and
so,
do a
because
partnership?
I'm afraid we will not grow into the valid business that we could be unless we start talking partnerships with people that have already crossed economies of scale in what they're delivering. You know, points of sale at spaza shops. We're not going to reinvent that. We're going to partner in it and have a revenue share. We're going to use our infrastructure, our stuff to partner with people who've got technology. We already are being approached with off-balance sheet financing solutions.
Which in English means what?
Which means that instead of borrowing against a state guarantee or against an asset, we want to build an e-commerce facility here. Someone will give us the money on the strength of the economics of that facility itself. Okay, that is a real live discussion that we're having across Africa in a project called Ecom Africa, with ourselves, Istanbul, Tunisia, Cote d'Ivoire, and Kenya as the partners to create an e-commerce capability in Africa, the fastest growing population in the world, that will create an Amazon and an Alibaba that can compete. I mean, to create an alternative to Amazon,
Sure.
Because what we happen here, we price takers. It's about time we became price makers. It's about time we started exporting our own produce instead of importing all of the stuff from the East, an extraordinarily skewed economics to us. And so we need to stand up. But if you've got, I mean, if you go back to the beginning, Eskom wasn't financed by government.
No.
It was financed by project finance, raised capital to build a power station which delivered cash flows which serviced the capital. That's the world we're starting to talk about here. Can we build an e-commerce facility? Let the cash flow show it. Can we? This is the first year, this coming year, that we'll be investing real capital. We've got 856 million earmarked for capital investment in the post office in the next coming year. And so we're starting to invest. But Bruce, it's not a one-day game, this.
I mean, I wonder if you've got enough time to see through this vision through, because you started this job 3.5 years ago. You've got 18 months left of a contract. I mean, Lesetja Kganyago had his contract renewed fairly recently. Would you be up for it if the president said, you're on the right path, I'd like to give you another innings?
It's not about me. It's about replacing me, actually. My job is to find other people to run the shop, not to run it. The challenge that CEOs have in this country is to transfer knowledge and create expertise in our people.
And companies, uniformly this year, we've seen companies, CEOs depart with no replacements in place at multiple companies, because companies are failing in that.
I've already spoken to our team about who's going to run this place when I'm not running this place. We're distributing control. We've got regional GMs, all used to be centered at head office. It cannot be about the individual. It's got to be about the systemic. And that's pervasive across South Africa. It's one of the inequalities, is skills. And it is incumbent upon a chief executive in this country to transfer skill and to create skill and knowledge and appetite and energy. And so it's not about me. If they still need me in 2 years' time, I would have failed.
Do you think you've done the job? I mean,
No. We've just got to a point where people are starting to take what we could do seriously. Just maybe. Just maybe. When I got here, they didn't believe we could do it. In the first meeting I had with National Treasury, they said, Mark, I want to tell you two things. We've got no money, we don't believe a word the post office says. Okay? That's changed because we've become an essential service and we are starting to deliver. I wish you'd been here when we first got here. You know, we are starting to deliver and the proof will be in the pudding. And I can tell you that as South Africans, all of us, we must stop investing in Sandton and start investing in where we live, in Alexander, in Diepsloot, in Khayelitsha. That's where the capital has got to go. That's where post offices have got to grow. That's what we want to do here, okay? And that was one of the primary purposes of me coming here, was to address financial inequality through providing financial services. Now, I got invited to Turkey to talk about Ecom Africa. When I arrived there, they treat you like a rock star, man. They're like, you guys are the Southern Africa. They see a world. The Director General of the UPU, the Universal Postal Union, came and stood at that door over there and he said, I can imagine an airplane driving in here and offloading, because we are the only institution that can directly offload from the apron. Because you can come in here, clear customs, and deliver straight to the public.
None of this works, of course, unless people at the post office are happy. And one looks around, there are lots of smiling faces, but this is a staff complement that is under a huge amount of pressure. In the civil service over the last 3 years, where wage increases have been around 20% over that period of time, workers at the post office have been asked to tighten their belts. They've been asked to take far lower increases. In fact, for I think 3 out of the last 4 or 2 out of the last 3 years, there've been no increases to speak of. How does Mark Barnes climb that particular mountain? In a moment.